Boulder suspect in court, his family in custody. Tonight, why Immigration and Customs Enforcement is now looking into the wife and the kids of the Colorado terror suspect. Plus, pardon problems, you could say. The Department of Justice now looking into President Biden's pardons. How the White House responded when asked why all of a sudden that is a top priority. But first tonight, here from the Hill, did you think he left? Think again. Elon Musk trashing the big, beautiful bill. Did that catch the White House off guard today?
Look, the president already knows where Elon Musk stood on this bill. It doesn't change the president's opinion. This is one big, beautiful bill, and he's sticking to it.
In moments here on the Hill, we are speaking to two of the big names in this town on the big issue. Senator Ron Johnson, who caught the attention of the White House as well today. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, why she's expressing a little bit of buyer's remorse, you could say, on one aspect of the big, beautiful bill. Hello, good evening. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. So, as we sort of survey where all or some of this stands tonight, here's the state of play, in part at least. The White House trying to pull out all the stops to rally senators behind the bill, which is supposed to be President Trump's landmark legislation, at least in year one. They want it wrapped up in the next month or so, by the 4th of July. Now, right now, a handful of Republicans in the upper chamber, which, by the way, is enough to tank the bill if they would want to, they have some concerns, including Senators Rand Paul and Senator Johnson. Those two say, for example, it would add trillions to America's ballooning debt. Now, the national debt has grown steadily for years now, $36 trillion and climbing. The Congressional Budget Office says the legislation could add trillions more. But the White House says their estimate is wrong and biased. And the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, was asked today about the concerns from Paul and Johnson that the bill is essentially a debt bomb.
Those senators, it's not news that they disagree with this president on policy, and the president has vocally called them out for it and for their not having their facts together. I would add the Congressional Budget Office has been historically wrong.
Now, the president also today went after Paul in a social media post, calling the bill a, quote, big winner. But someone else disagrees. Just days after receiving that key to the White House, remember this from last week, from President Trump and his farewell goodbye, Elon Musk took to his own platform to torch the bill, aligning himself with fiscal conservatives. Musk writing that the big, beautiful bill is anything but. He called it, quote, a disgusting abomination. Marjorie Taylor Greene here in a moment, but first joining me live, one of those senators who is at the forefront of the conversations with the White House, Senator Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin. Thanks for being back with us tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
You heard the White House there, Senator. They said you are blatantly wrong. What say you?
I would say very few members of Congress know the numbers inside and out like I do. And I'd first make a distinction between the CBO's 10-year budget outlook and projection, which projects deficits over the next 10 years of almost $22 trillion, versus the scores. Nobody can predict the future. I understand that. Yep. But it's pretty convincing to me that we are on a unsustainable trajectory. President Biden, unfortunately, did not return our spending levels to pre-pandemic levels once the pandemic was over, employment in the economy were recovering. Instead, he maintained deficits of $1.9 trillion. That's where we stand today. We'll have about a $1.8, $1.9 trillion deficit this fiscal year. And that just grows to almost $25 trillion, or $2.5 trillion per year over the next 10 years, averaging about $2.2 trillion. So again, the trajectory of deficits is up. And no matter what the big, beautiful bill does, it does not address that long-term prospect. It does not bend the deficit curve down. It supports it going up.
Here's the national debt over time. As I saw someone on social media today say, this isn't the stock chart for Tesla or NVIDIA. This is our national debt. It only goes up and to the right. As I understand it, you're going to be a part of a group at the White House tomorrow speaking to the president. You spoke to him yesterday. Tomorrow, what are you going to tell him?
Yeah, pretty much what I've been telling him in previous meetings, that this is unsustainable, that I have options for returning to a pre-pandemic level. When we were in the White House last time, he said, I love it. The House ought to love this. we should have gone over and presented to the House and got a little more serious about spending. But listen, had a good conversation with him yesterday. I know he wants to reduce spending as well. This is difficult. We have big spenders in our party. It's not easy to do this. But from my standpoint, what I've always asked is we also need a process to achieve and maintain a pre-pandemic level spending.
Okay.
Elon Musk and Doe showed us the way. You have to go contract by contract, line by line, project by project.
So you just brought up Musk. He called it a massively outrageous pork-filled congressional spending bill, a disgusting abomination. Those who voted for it, you know you did wrong. You know it's wrong. Do you agree with Musk?
It doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't. And we have to. This is completely unsustainable. I have a new chart out that shows these growing deficits versus, for example, President Bush. He averaged deficits of $250 billion. Even President Obama, in his last 4 years, his average deficit was $550. Then President Trump had to work with Democrats. He averaged $810. But then we had the blowout year of COVID. We really spent too much that year. But it was Biden that continued post-pandemic spending, and here we are. This is now the new normal. It can't be. It's completely unsustainable.
No, but I mean, and you know this as well. There are projected $1 trillion deficits for the as far as the eye can see, which is partly why Musk is going after this. Why do you think he did it now, Senator? We're showing the video of him in the Oval. He was there for 130 days as a special government employee. He could have blasted this then. Why is he doing it now?
Again, you have to ask Elon that. Again, I appreciate what he did. I appreciate what President Trump did in setting up Doge. He's telling the truth. You know, that's all I'm doing too. What I'm trying to do here in the Senate, now that the bill's coming into our court, is I want to force everybody to look at the large numbers. You know, quit squabbling over individual scores on individual items. Look at the forest. We're arguing over twigs and leaves when the forest is on fire. And so I'm going to force the debate. I'm going to have us look at the real numbers, the long-term trajectory, and try and figure out what's the process to turn this into a downward trajectory in terms of deficits rather than the uphill one right now that just only dramatically increases our debt from about $37 trillion to almost $60 trillion. And that's probably a rosy scenario.
I want to get to your colleague in the other chamber, but do you ever envision a scenario in which you would vote against this in the Senate?
Well, I won't vote for the House version. That's very clear. I won't.
Okay.
But again, I want to work with the president to pass a bill that present a bill that we can vote for.
Got it. All right, we'll leave it there. Senator Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin. The White House was talking about him today here on the Hill tonight. Thank you, sir. So this bill is 1,116 pages, but there are 2 pages inside of it that have now caught the attention of one of the most well-known Republican lawmakers, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, even though the Congresswoman voted for the bill in the House, she now says, in full transparency, that she wasn't aware of a section that would strip states of their ability to regulate artificial intelligence for the next decade. Here's what she posted on social media, quote, "We have no idea what AI will be capable of in the next 10 years, and giving it free rein and tying in states' hands is potentially dangerous." Now, the Congresswoman says if the Senate doesn't strip out that portion of it, she'll vote against it if and when it heads back to the House. With us once again here on the Hill, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican from Georgia. Thanks for being back with us, Congresswoman. You say in full transparency you didn't know that this was in there, and now you're shining a light on it. How did you not know that it was in there, and how'd you find out about it?
Well, we don't get the full bill text until very close to the time to vote for it. And so that was one section, that was 2 pages that I didn't see. And I'm being very transparent and honest about it with everyone, but I find it so problematic that I'm willing to come forward and admit that those are 2 pages that I didn't read, because I never want to see a situation where state rights are stripped away. And that's exactly what it says in that bill text, that it would take away states' rights to regulate or make laws against AI for 10 years. And I think that's pretty terrifying. We don't know what AI is going to be capable of within 1 year. We don't know what it will be capable of in 5 years, let alone 10 years. And I think we have to protect states' rights to be able to regulate and make laws that they need to make for their states.
You know, you do come forward and you say it flat out. In transparency, you didn't know. But there was this viral moment back in 2010. It was Congresswoman, Speaker Nancy Pelosi at the time. I want to play the soundbite and get your reaction on the other side.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Talking about Obamacare, you have to pass the bill so you can find out what's in it. And you say you basically didn't get the full text to read it in time. Do you think the White House should have told you about this?
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to be clear about this. The White House and their legislative affairs team worked very closely with Congress in writing the bill text for the One Big Beautiful Bill. This was an aligned effort, and President Trump fully endorsed the bill and asked all of us, of course, to vote for it. Me included, personally, asked me to vote for it. I have supported President Trump for years and helped him get reelected. Here's what I supported in the bill. I supported making the president's tax cuts and jobs plan permanent. If we allow that to expire, we raise taxes on 60% by 60%. We can't allow that to happen. I also support the money that it spends for the border security, right, and also for energy. And I think those things are important. Do I like the spending? No, absolutely I don't. I chair the DOGE subcommittee on oversight.
Yeah, so what do you make of what Elon Musk said today? Because he said, I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. What would you say to Elon Musk?
Well, you know, I very much support Elon, and I have supported DOGE. As a matter of fact, I chair the DOGE subcommittee on oversight, and I would like to be voting on every single DOGE cut there is, along with cutting spending. We haven't had the opportunity to do that. We were supposed to vote on the first one, which is cutting $9 billion this week, and that was supposed to be sent from the White House to the House, and I haven't found out why we're not voting on that this week. I want to be voting on that. And so I think those things are important. I'd also like to point out what's important is the massive, we can't get out of $36 trillion in debt without something else. That's called economic growth. We can't just cut our way out of this because the interest is accumulating too fast, and there's just no way to cut enough spending to dig our way out. We have to grow the economy. And President Trump is doing a great job with that, bringing in so many businesses that are investing in America. The GDP is doing great. Inflation is coming down. And I would say that only 5 months of working at DOGE in the government isn't enough time to fix those problems. This is going to take years and years of all of us working together.
Inflation is dropping. GDP was down 0.2, but the White House points to what they believe will come next. But on Musk, he said, shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it. He doesn't specifically say you, but you did vote for it. Why do you think he's doing this now? And do you take issue at Musk calling out folks like yourself?
You know, I take no issue with anyone calling out the government. I think the American people, including Elon Musk, have the right to do that every single day. As a matter of fact, I wish they would come to Washington and call out this government a lot more. I'm one of the people that ran for Congress because I was angry at Republicans. I wasn't angry at Democrats. They say what they're going to do. They support big government. They support massive spending. They support the invasion of our country by illegal aliens from all over the world, including cartels, and helping the cartels make billions of dollars. I ran in 2020 because I was angry at Republicans. So I fully understand what Elon is saying, and I agree with him to a certain extent. However, I don't want to continue this government on a CR that's funding Democrat and Biden policies and funding. And this bill was important to transition over to exactly what the American people voted for.
All right, we'll leave it there. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican from Georgia, with us once again tonight here on The Hill. Thanks so much. Talk again soon.
Thank you.
Still to come tonight here on The Hill. Look who's by my side. Sean Spicer, Aaron McGuire, Kurt Bardella. There was a lot there. In the last 10 minutes or so between Ron Johnson and the Congresswoman. What to make of all of it? What does President Trump do next? We'll get into it on the other side. Plus, the investigation ramps up into that terror attack in Colorado by the suspect's wife and kids now in federal custody. We are live in Boulder, and Tale of Two Presidents. Why the White House is now focusing on Biden pardons. Thanks for being with us tonight. Welcome to Washington. I'm Blake Berman. I'll see you back, along with these fine folks in 4 minutes. All right, hope you were with us there the first 15 minutes or so, because we just heard from two of the most influential names in this town at this moment. Marjorie Taylor Greene, always making news, as she did there with us. Senator Ron Johnson, going to be a fixture over the next month or so. You are going to hear his name repeatedly, trust me. Now think about where things stand at the moment. Republicans trying to pass the president's agenda. Elon Musk back in the mix, calling out the president's bill. Mike Johnson pushing back, saying, you know what, Musk is wrong. And as all that played out, by the way, the White House said today, you know what, we're going to try to start making some of those Doge cuts permanent, but just $9 billion worth. So where does President Trump go from here? I told you they were with me. Sean Spicer, NewsNation contributor, host of the Sean Spicer Show podcast, former press secretary as well. Aaron McGuire is a Republican strategist, and Kurt Bardella, NewsNation contributor, Democratic strategist. Hello to you all. Thanks for being here. You were sitting here watching and listening as I was talking to Ron Johnson and Marjorie Taylor Greene. You thought there was a through line there, which was?
It's a centuries-old problem. I wish I knew then what I knew now. And you heard Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, I wish I knew it was in the bill. Ron Johnson saying, I wish we had had this conversation with the House earlier. It's this constant problem. And we see it over and over again. And there's a reason it exists, because you can't show everyone the final product early enough, because then everyone picks it apart. Right, so then they wait to the last minute.
But that's the Nancy Pelosi thing, right? Like your party crushed her when she said that.
Right. You just don't say it in Washington. That's the reality. Right? That's the truth. But the reality is that that's the problem, and this is what the constant issue is. But there's a bigger problem here, and this is what I appreciate what Ron Johnson's saying. Washington spends too much. And Elon, at least, right. And the problem is that there is not the political will to do what we need to do. And these programs, these inefficiencies, this waste that exists does not get the attention it deserves. And unfortunately, we now get to a point, and Ron Johnson's right, we should have had these conversations earlier. Right. We're at a point now, politically speaking, where we need to move forward. And it's unfortunate, and I think that's why they sent that rescission bill today, to assuage guys like Ron Johnson and Rand Paul and say, hey, we're starting to cut something.
So there was let me pull it up here. There was a package, basically, the White House sent out today, and that said, you know what, here's all the Doge cuts.
Right, $9 billion.
That we're going to do, $9 billion. Can I get to it quick enough?
I mean, the first round.
I sent to our team.
That's right,
Hold
and
on,
that's
I'm reading the email. I said, not coincidental. Elon torches the bill, says vote him out if they don't codify Doge, and voila. Thread from the White House with examples saying their package is headed to the Hill.
Just to be clear, I know this is kind of dorky and wonky, but the reality is there's only so much you can do inside the reconciliation process. Okay, so they have a reason for the process, but they need to show the American people, we got the message. We spend too much, the government's inefficiency, and Doge actually did some stuff.
I saw Chairman Jordan on a different network talking about how rescissions and reconciliation are just part of the process, that Doge is just part of the process. Don't tell an American anywhere that $9 billion is not a lot of money, because it is. It's significant.
But it's also a rounding error when you talk about $6 trillion.
But you know what? Tell that to any average American. Tell me, oh, there was a rounding error and whoopsie-poopsie, $9 billion into my bank account. I'm not going to complain. It's a step. Reconciliation is another step. The other step that Chairman Jordan talked about was that they want to be able to pass all 12 appropriation bills out of the House. Hasn't been done since 1997. If they take those 3 steps, the rescissions package, the reconciliation package, and making sure that they get the appropriations bills done, that's where they can make meaningful cuts. Nobody should have assumed.
They need to do what Aaron's doing now. They need to say it all out. Because you know, if Jim Jordan's not doing it and Aaron's not doing it, then they are not going to win this argument. All right, that's the problem. They need to go out and explain how it's all going to play out, because right now there's a lot of people, including myself, that are saying if you don't cut significantly and cut the inefficiencies and the waste in government, then why did we go through this?
So Elon called him out, torched the bill, Kurt, and now all of a sudden you got Mike Johnson. With all due respect, Elon is simply wrong about the one big, beautiful bill. Is Elon now the champion of the left all of a sudden? You guys...
No, but it makes for some good schadenfreude. Listen, at the end of the day, Republicans right now are being held to the standard that they kind of set for themselves. There were a lot of big pronouncements about how big the Doge cuts would be. There were big expectations that were set, big numbers thrown around by Republicans, not by Democrats, not by the media. So when you come up short of that, people go, well, that's not exactly what you were promising the American people 3 or 4 months ago when Musk and Doge were running buck wild over the federal government. So ultimately, the only thing that really matters is a year from now, when the midterm election season comes around, are people going to feel the difference in their everyday lives, in their bank accounts, in their wallets, at the grocery store, on the Target Walmart shelves? Like, that's really the only thing that's going to matter. No one's going to remember reconciliation. No one's going to remember conference. No one's going to remember the details in the process. It's the result is what they're going to be judged on.
These three back later in the show.
Aaron agreed with me.
Sean,
she agreed with me.
Appreciate it. Still to come tonight here on the Hill. We'll take you live to Boulder, Colorado, where an illegal immigrant attacking Jewish activists. A congressman on the floor today delivering a powerful message. What he had to say and his demands from the investigation on the other side, and why the DOJ now focusing on pardons issued by that man right there. What's the White House doing? When we return.
Today, the Department of Homeland Security and ICE are taking the family of suspected Boulder, Colorado terrorist and illegal alien Mohammed Solomon into ICE custody. We're also investigating to what extent his family knew about this horrific attack.
Welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. 6:30 here on the East Coast and in Washington. 4:30 in Boulder, Colorado this afternoon. That, of course, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, announcing that Mohammed Solomon's wife and 5 children now in federal custody. Solomon, of course, charged with 16 counts of attempted murder and a federal hate crime in connection with Sunday's fiery attack in Boulder, Colorado that injured 12 people. Our Nancy Liu is live now in Boulder with the very latest. And Nancy, the administration made it very clear today what they plan on doing with his family.
Yeah, it couldn't be clearer, Blake. It's been less than 48 hours since Mohammed Solomon's alleged terror attack here in Boulder, and now his entire family is in federal custody. That includes 2 teenagers and 3 younger kids. And check out this new White House post on X. It reads, 6 one-way tickets for Mohammed's wife and 5 kids. Final boarding call coming soon. They could be deported by tonight. Now, the Solomon family had lived in this apartment complex in Colorado Springs, about 100 miles away from the attack scene. Both he and his wife apparently spent many, many years living in Kuwait before relocating to the U.S., where he's been working as an Uber driver in the Denver area. Investigators had called the family cooperative during execution of the warrants in Colorado Springs, and Secretary Noem indicated the wife and kids would be investigated for possible knowledge or involvement with the Sunday attack. Now, Solomon remains in custody at the Boulder County Jail. He will face all kinds of charges, including a federal hate crime, when he's back in court on Thursday. Blake?
Our Nancy Liu live in Boulder tonight. Nancy, thank you. And back here in Washington, the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt addressed the attacks this afternoon, pointing the finger at the previous administration.
This tragedy is a sobering reminder of the consequences of the Biden administration's failed policies. Instead of deporting this heinous individual, Joe Biden's administration allowed him to stay in our country and to work.
Lawmakers up on Capitol Hill now demanding action in the wake of the attack. The Florida Congressman Randy Fine is one of 4 Republicans in the House who's also Jewish. And he spoke on the House floor, gave this impassioned speech earlier today.
It feels like open hunting season on Jewish Americans. I wear a kippah not because I'm a proud and observant Jew. I'm not all that observant. I wear it out of respect for all of the Jews around America who do not feel safe wearing theirs today.
The congressman from the state of Florida live with us tonight here on the Hill. Congressman Fine, thanks for being with us. We saw you there on the House floor today, so thanks for being here tonight on the show. The Republicans control the House, you control the Senate, you control the White House, and these are obviously tumultuous times for the Jewish community. What can you do legislatively, if anything at all, that you feel can enact change here when it comes to addressing anti-Semitism?
Well, there's a lot that we can do. The first thing that we can do is we can declare the Muslim Brotherhood and all of their associated groups terrorist organizations. Very little of what you see out there is organic. It is generally all funded through networks. That's number one. Number two, we can crack down on our universities. People need to understand when our nation's finest institutions roll out lies and endorse things like globalize the Intifada and by any means necessary, they're signaling to regular people that what they're doing is okay. And the third thing we can do is we can make sure President Trump has every dollar he needs to deport every single illegal immigrant. And we can take a hard look at all of the people we've allowed here on tourist, business, and education visas to make sure they're people we actually want in our country.
You know, I hear the administration look back to the prior administration, the Biden administration, and what was essentially an open border policy. But looking forward, Congressman, the FBI and the CIA and the law enforcement community now have this issue on their hands. What is incumbent upon them, upon Kash Patel, upon Director Radcliffe, as you see it?
Well, I think they need to deport people as quickly as they can. I mean, if you're an illegal immigrant from one of these danger zones, then we need to round you up and we need to send you home. So I think we need to accelerate, and other states need to do what I passed in Florida before I came to Congress, which was to make sure that the local governments were working with the federal government to get people deported as quickly as possible. That is the focus. This attack is the worst kind of attack because it never should have happened because he shouldn't have been here anyway. And so we need to get these people out of the country as quickly as we can.
You've got votes coming up. I know you got to run. I appreciate the time, but before you head on out, let me ask you, Congressman, do you feel safe? How do you view your safety in the middle of all this?
It's a great question. And the funny thing is, I'm in the Cannon House office building right now. The Capitol is across the street. And I have to ask myself, will I be safe going outside and walking across the street in the public, or should I be in a tunnel? Now, I feel that way. Imagine the millions of Jewish Americans right now. Jews do not feel safe in our own country right now, and it is because we have allowed evil in the form of the Palestinian movement to go unchecked for 18 months. That is going to stop. I'm going to make sure of it.
Randy Fine is a Republican from Florida. As I mentioned, he's got to run, has some votes, but with us tonight here on the Hill. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Still to come tonight here on the Hill. Auto signed, sealed, and delivered? Maybe. Lots of questions. The White House today, of all the big issues around the world and in this country right now, there was a decent amount of talk about the autopen.
The president is making a good point when he discusses the usage of the autopen. Who was running the country for the past 4 years?
But is he? And is it the right use of the White House's time to go down this path? The Justice Department now getting involved. What the White House said today about looking into the former president's pardons and why they're spending so much time on this issue. I thank you for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Berman. See you back in 4 here on the Hill. All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. Pardons granted by former President Biden. Now the subject of an investigation by the current administration, really the Department of Justice. According to reports, pardon attorney Ed Martin of the DOJ emailed his staff to say the probe will explore President Biden's competence and if he were, quote, taken advantage of through the use of the autopen. Now, the autopen is a mechanical device used by presidents to replicate their signatures on official documents. A robotic arm reproduces the signature that's basically or closely resembles the original hand version. It goes back decades here and is used for a variety of reasons, mostly mundane. Today, it was the Trump administration that raised the issue of its legitimacy in certain situations.
The president is making a good point when he discusses the usage of the autopen. Who was running the country for the past 4 years? Perhaps those documents were signed with the autopen, something that I believe the Department of Justice is looking into. As you saw, Ed Martin made an announcement at the Department of Justice this morning to launch an investigation because the American people deserve answers.
But as the Trump White House is focused on the previous administration, it's also important to remember what just sort of everyday folks are focused on as they go about their day-to-day lives. According to the Pew Research Center, in a poll that was released well into the president's second term, the top 3 issues Americans cared about the most, all economic, affordability of health care, inflation, and the federal budget or deficit. Of course, the border and immigration, massive issues as well that the president believes helped carry him to the finish line, maybe even at the top of the list. But the White House was asked today if they're looking backwards at pardons, why are they doing that and not looking forwards?
I think in comparison to the amount of time this president has spent on securing the border, on fixing our economy, I just read out for you an entire list of economic accomplishments. Look at the border numbers. Look at the time and effort he's divulged into solving the global conflicts abroad. It pales in comparison, but it still, nevertheless, is a very important issue. And it was a huge issue that sent the president back to this White House.
Full panel here with me now. Sean Spicer, NewsNation political contributor, former press secretary in the first Trump administration. Taryn Rosenkrantz is a Democratic strategist. Other side of the aisle, Aaron McGuire is a Republican strategist. And Kurt Bardella, NewsNation contributor, Democratic strategist as well. Hello to you all. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. If you were to get the question fired at you today on the auto pen, we heard from the White House today. Why are they going down this road on past pardons and the auto pen?
I mean, for a lot of reasons. One, it's not just about the pardons, it's about all of the things that happened. You mentioned those top issues. There were things that Biden did in all of those areas. And the question is, did he do them or did the staff do them? We have a right to know not just about what happened in the past that affects our current state, but also to defend against future actions. Look, the auto pen is used, as you mentioned, for a lot of things.
Yep.
Happy birthday, congratulations on your wedding.
Yeah.
That's fine. The Constitution's pretty clear that bills need to be signed, okay? But then everything else is sort of in a gray area about what happened, and it really goes to intent, and that's what Ed Martin is looking at. Did President Biden know that his signature was being used on that? The pardon power doesn't say it has to be signed. So it's not a question in my mind whether or not the auto pen was used or not, but did Biden know that his signature was being affixed to an official document, in this case a pardon, or for that matter, I think anything else?
Well, I think these are all fair questions to ask because while the American people were focused on the economy and affordability and healthcare and immigration, it was clear through multiple reporting sources and now through Democrats who all of a sudden have spines of steel to stand up to the clear decline that Joe Biden was going through and state the obvious that something was happening to the president. And it was clear there were people covering up for him. I know I've been shouted down on this panel before about calling it a cover-up, but let's call it what it is here. There was a concerted effort to hide the president's cognitive decline. Did he know what he was signing or authorizing to be signed on his behalf? That is a serious, substantial question because it also leads to the question of whether or not the 25th Amendment should have been invoked over President Biden because these are serious concerns and the American people deserve the answers regardless of party.
Why not take a look, they say.
Take a look. I don't care. Go ahead. Every minute you want to spend looking backwards at Joe Biden, please. Make our day. That's a fantastic use of time. Please keep doing that. Yeah, sure. That's great. Because you're not focusing on actually doing your job then.
But you're acting like you can't walk and chew gum at the same time.
I'm reminding everyone of the cover-up. You have to walk and chew gum.
Wait a second. What I think he's trying to say. Take his advice. No, what I said is what he's trying to say is that if you're going to do that and not focus on the issues yet again of not paying attention to what America is trying to tell you. And honestly, if you're really so concerned about the Constitution, that is the one thing Donald Trump is not concerned about. I think we know that over and over and over again. It seems like he loves to trample on the Constitution and distract from the fact that yet again he's not paying attention to the economy, which got him into the White House was that they were saying they weren't paying enough attention to the economy. And grocery prices are raising every day.
I guess, though, Taryn, I guess the question is, we heard in the elections, time and time again, threat to democracy, threat to democracy, threat to democracy, and now that question's being flipped on the other side.
Right, and if that, here's the thing. I think we know right now what is so scary to me, and I feel this every day, is that threat to democracy is becoming real in so many ways, and we know you can laugh all you want, but what you aren't paying attention to is the American people. You aren't paying attention to the fact that at these town halls, they are yelling at your Republican members of Congress because they are upset. They are upset about what is happening in this country. Do you know that people are using their short-term loans to pay for their groceries and gas? That is a concern, and that's what you should be worried about.
First of all, I'll give you some shopping advice because I can tell you, eggs are down, gas is down, all under down.
They
might be going to the wrong places.
Well,
number one. Number two, number two, look, no one's accusing Donald Trump of not doing enough. In fact, most people tell him to slow down. Look at everything that he's doing. That's not the complaint right now, that he's not focusing. He's doing too much in many people's opinion. And he's focusing plenty on the economy, plenty on foreign policy, plenty on onshoring things. And then lastly, if you're going to ask anyone about looking backwards, they spent the last 2 years of the Trump administration investigating everything from his family's business to the fake Russia hoax to all these cover-ups. So give me a break about looking backwards.
You just brought up the economy. Here's some of what the president has been saying as it relates to basically, once again, the last administration.
He came in on January 20th. So this is Biden. And you could even say the next quarter is sort of Biden.
What's going on at the college level and the colleges, Columbia, NYU, and others is a disgrace. And it's really on Biden.
This is Biden's economy.
At what point does he need to say, you know what, stop with the backwards stuff?
At this point, he can say whatever he wants. He's president of the United States. He can make whatever villain he wants. And if he wants it to be Joe Biden, so be it. Democrats were the ones who failed the American people and propped up a president who should not have been in the Oval Office. If Donald Trump wants to make Joe Biden the enemy, fine. He can pick any enemy he wants at this point because Democrats don't have a party leader. So if it's Joe Biden or AOC or Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi or Hakeem Jeffries or any myriad of the Democrats who have failed, Pete Buttigieg, we could go on and on and on. He can pick his enemy as he wants. He's president. Who cares?
I think it says a lot that Donald Trump does spend, I think, an inordinate amount of oxygen talking about his predecessor, and I think he needs a, quote, bad guy because what he's doing isn't working. It's not connecting with the American people. It's taking this country backwards. The promises, the grandiose promises that he made, the expectations that he set, ending the war on day one, fixing the economy overnight, all these things, it's not happening yet. So he has to blame Joe Biden. He has to keep propping up Joe Biden so that he can...
Just like Democrats.
But how much to it to Aaron's point that the Democratic Party is leaderless right now?
Yeah. There's no doubt about that. I have no issue saying...
It should be Kurt in his tux.
Damn right it should be. And by the way, it's after 6 p.m. What am I, a farmer? Yeah, I'm in a tux.
I can help you with the whole pan situation.
What about to Aaron's point there?
Well, I think his messy and chaotic agenda is what has caused so much of this back and forth, I think. And I think it's okay right now that the Democrats are leaderless in a lot of ways because, look, we are in this mode. He's caused a lot of chaos, and people are trying to figure out how to stop the bleeding in a lot of ways, stop what's most important, trying to make progress. They're in Congress like, okay, there's this big, beautiful, toxic bill. They're trying to make sure they're saving the safety nets. There's a lot going on. And I don't think we are ready to have a presidential election right now. It's okay. I don't want them infighting. I think it's best that...
I'll give you the last word here.
Yeah, the last word is results. Yeah. At the end of the day, judge President Trump by his results. I believe we're going to pass this bill. The economy is going to continue to grow. We're bringing more jobs back home. Companies are investing in America. We're holding other countries accountable for unfair trade practices. These are the things that we're securing the border, for goodness sakes. Right. Holy smokes. Yeah. I think, look, President Trump's going to have a record. He's not even running again. The amount of stuff that he is doing, he's doing every single thing he said he was going to do, and he's getting the results of the American people.
You know what you used to tell me when you were behind the podium?
Shut up.
Not next or that. We'll see what happens. Yeah, right? That's the Trump line. We'll see what happens. Yeah. All right, we'll leave it there. I don't know where you got to go in your tux, but
I got to go to an AI gala. Don't tell MTG.
All right, still ahead here on the Hill. Are we about to see a new era of rideshare? Have you ever seen one of these in your backyard? I'm going to explain to you what's going on and why this thing has gone exponential. And coming up on Elizabeth Vargas Reports, police are beginning a new search for Madeline McCann, the toddler who went missing 18 years ago. Elizabeth is talking to one of the original detectives coming up 7 o'clock Eastern right here on NewsNation. Don't go anywhere, though. My take, other side of the break. All right, New York, as you know, known for its pizza, bagels, even buffalo wings if we're headed upstate. Foods, none of which require a frying pan. And if you own a restaurant there, maybe you think that's a good thing because lawmakers in the Empire State are pushing to ban the sale of nonstick pots and pans because of a chemical used in them that they say is dangerous. Now, if successful, the cookware could be off the shelves in 2027, so New Yorkers may want to invest in those steel wool scouring pads and get ready to do some scrubbing. The law has already been passed in 6 states, but would have to be signed into law by the governor to make it stick, I guess you say. in New York. All right, time for my take now. Remember when you heard of Uber? Probably somewhere around 2010 or so, arranging a taxi service with the click of a button revolutionized daily travel. But just over a decade later, ride sharing is starting to seem antiquated because of the sharing part. Tesla and Elon, of course, are the big names you know involving self-driving technology.
My prediction is that probably by the end of next year, we'll have probably hundreds of thousands, if not
hundreds of thousands,
if not over 1 million Teslas doing self-driving in the U.S.
All right, so that was Elon talking about Tesla, and then there's Waymo. I want to show you over here something that caught my eye recently. This is Waymo. This is the company that's owned by Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google. In September of 2023, you see it here. There were basically 40,000 driverless Waymo trips in California. Skip now to 18 months later, and that number was just north of 700,000 in March of this year. As the Wall Street Journal reports, Waymo's vehicles could hit 20 million total autonomous trips by the end of 2025. In just the recent weeks, by the way, federal rules involving autonomous were tweaked. And you could imagine more of that's going to be coming here in the future. So, as we end tonight, we say you might want to buckle up for what's to come, even if the quote-unquote driver won't have to. And that's my take. I thank you so much for watching us tonight here on The Hill. We'll be back 6 o'clock Eastern. There is a big meeting tomorrow at the White House involving those senators and the president and the big, beautiful bill. I'm Blake Berman. We'll see you then.